Hello guys and welcome back. So in the last video we have had the basic introduction of what a CSS is and how it works. So today we are going to move forward and we are going to have a better understanding of how CSS works. So here I have a basic HTML file. You can say that I have given it a title of CSS intro, and I have used here an external CSS. Also here is the external CSS file, but don't worry, we are going to cover all that in the upcoming videos. This is also an introductory video to have your understanding crystal clear. So here I have used a division. You can see that I have used here a class, and here are some inline elements and the block elements. So today I want to discuss about the basics, you can say somewhat advanced topics of CSS for your better understanding. So whenever you are designing a web page, then the main thing which you want to keep in mind is the difference between the block level and inline elements. So you can see here that this heading tag, this division, this paragraph are all the, you can say, block level elements. So they begin their initiation, or their instances begin from the new line, whereas this bold and this italic are the inline elements. Also other examples of inline elements is the emphasize, or you can say strong element. So I have just shown here this inline element with a purple border and the block level elements with different colored borders. So if you know the difference between this block level and inline elements, then you can easily use CSS. So how a CSS work, or CSS basically consists of something which we called property and value pair. So what this property does is it tells us, or it tells the browser, that which aspect of a particular element which we want to change or we want to design, and the value uh, tells us the setting of that aspect. So here for example I have used the, I want to change the property value, you can say aspect, which is the background color, and I want to set it to teal, so it is a color. So you can see in our HTML file that the background color is teal. So CSS works on this very basic principle on a property and a value pair, in which the property, as I mentioned, that describes the aspects which we want to change, and the value is referring to the settings as to which value we want to assign to that particular aspect. So also you will come across something like this, that h1 comma h2 comma h3, and also there will be h1 space h2 space h3. So basically they both are different, they are not the same thing. But before we understand their difference, let us now talk about the different types of selectors in CSS. So what basically a selector is? So selector is nothing but it selects a particular part of your HTML file. Say if I want to consider this entire division, so I can either use this div tag or div element, or I can specify a class and I can select that class. So there are different types of selector in CSS. The very first one is the universal selector, which stands for the, you can say, if we want to design our entire, say, web page in a particular manner, or if we want to have a common design for our entire web page, then we can use this universal selector. So what it does is, whatever property value pairs which we are going to you can say define here, or you can say describe here, it is going to apply to the entire web page. So here I have just used the background color and I have set it to teal. So you can see that the entire web page has been changed to the that particular color. The next type are the element selector, or you can say the tag selector. So I have used a paragraph tag here. So inside of the paragraph tag I have described certain properties and set its value. So we are going to cover what this border is, what this font size and color padding etc in the upcoming videos. But for now you just have to see what is the difference when we use this, you can say, tag element, or you can say tag selector. So this is the particular paragraph which we are talking about. So you can see here that I have set its border to 2 pixels solid green. So here you can see the green border. The font size is set to 25 pixels. The color is white, as you can see, and the padding is 10 pixels. So this is a type of selector which we call a tag selector. The next type is the class selector. So as you all know that whenever we want to define or describe a class, we can use a dot followed by the name of a class. It can be any name, but for our convenience I have used here dot container. So this class is having the styling as such. The border is 2px solid red, font family is serif, and text align is justify. So you can see here this okay, entire division. So this entire class container consists of the h1 tag and the paragraph also, and also this inline elements. So we can see here this is the entire container which is I have shown with a red border. So inside of this we are having this heading, and inside of this we are having paragraph, this italics and bold. So which whatever property which I am going to define here is going to apply to the entire container. Also there is a precedence rule as which property applies to which element in which order we are going to cover in a few minutes. So this was the container class. There is also a, you can say, id selector which works same as the class, just we want to replace this dot with a hash. And what we can do here is we have given here a class, but we can change it with id, and we can save it and let us see. Okay, so you can see here that now there is a considerable change in the appearance. So when can we use id and when can we use a class, we are going to cover it in the upcoming videos, but you can just google it and you can just try on your own what are the considerable changes which occurs when we use an id or when we use a class. Okay, so the next type of selector, or you can say we can select more than one tags. As such I have selected here this h1, h2 and h3 simultaneously. So they all, this h1, whatever the text which will be inside this h1, h2 and h3 is going to have a common style. So let us see here, I have used the h1. So let us also write something inside of this h2 tag, and we can say here this is heading 2, and let us also use here h3 and we can say heading 3. Let me just save it and reload the page. So you can see that all the three headings takes up the same design or same property values as we describe here inside of this particular section. The similar is okay, so I have used a similar example here. So the next type of selector are the descendant selectors. So as I mentioned earlier, so the difference between h1, h2, h3 and h1, h2 and h3 is that this h1, h2 and h3 are the independent tags to which this property is going to apply, whereas this h1 followed by h2 followed by h3 is a type of descendant selector in which the h3 tag or h3 element which is inside of the h2 element and that h2 element which is inside of the h1 element, to that particular h3 element a particular style which we will be applying here is going to be seen in the browser. We will be covering in the upcoming videos. So this was also, you can say, only for your information, the difference between the both. So there are also the precedence rules. So the different types of rules which are used or on which the CSS works are basically the last rule, the specificity rule, the inheritance rule, and the importance rule. So we are going to cover that when we come across that particular part in our videos. So also there is an another you can say uh, important value, which is, you can say, if we want certain you can say property to be highlighted first, then we can use the important tag here. So no matter whatever the circumstances are, this particular property, which is the border 2px solid orange, is going to be shown in the browser. So why I'm saying that, there come certain situations in which instead, you can say, in spite of we have described the particular properties, sometimes we might not see that particular design in our web page because of the so-called precedence rule. But in that precedence rule also, if we want to show a particular property, then we can use this uh, exclamation followed by important tag. So that's all for today's video, and from the next video we are actually going to start the CSS section in which we will be designing our own web page. So till then, stay tuned.